Greetings, Phi Theta Kappa members of the Upsilon Delta chapter. We are tackling our 2019 summer and fall research and writing projects, and I wanted to give you a couple tips and resources that are going to support your writing. Hopefully this will make things easy for you, and so I hope these little tips and resources are helpful. The very first thing I want to mention, I want to go through this quickly, is some of the tools that you're going to use in terms of questioning tools. You always want to start your research with a guiding question. What are you trying to answer? This question may morph over time, especially as you learn more about what you're researching. Now, hopefully you don't have to throw the question out and start over, but you may find that it gains better focus. In a past Honors in Action research that our chapter did, we started out researching who should pay for education. And that question is very broad. The more we researched, we started to focus in on K through 12, and then I believe it was ultimately K through 6 education. And then we started to look globally, and we really recognized that we wanted to focus on who should pay for the education of girls in particular. And then we narrowed our research further to look at who should pay for the education of girls in K through 6 in 3 particular countries. See how that gained focus? The more we learned, the more we started to target what we wanted to answer. So always begin in your writing with that research question, and always begin with your research there too, but understanding that it might gain focus as you gain clarity in your research. Make sure you present both sides, very, very important, and make sure that the reader understands the two sides. If there's 3 sides, then I guess you need to present all 3 sides, right? But you need to make sure that the interested, conflicting opinions are represented fairly and supported fairly. We're all human and we tend to have an opinion, and that's okay, but we do ourselves an injustice if we do not allow the other side to make clear their opinion, their objections, and then we address all of that, because nothing, there typically would not be a controversy if it was just really clear cut, right? So we need to present all of that and address it. Okay. Here's a question that I sometimes get a little flack with, although this is very common as we do research, and that is to answer the question, so what? This will help you write more concisely. It's a little bit of an editing question, because if it is raining today, so what? Well, now wait a minute. This is the first rain we've had in almost a year. Oh, well, if that's the case, that is very significant, right? Well, it's raining today, and that's part of a tropical storm that is brewing and causing flooding, and it's day 1 of a 10-day, or we're on day 8 of 10 days of rain. Very significant. Much more than just it's raining today. We wouldn't write necessarily about a very regular routine, the sun is shining. So what? So make sure you're answering that question as you write. Another question, and this is the one I really want us to focus on, is says who. As we do research writing, it's very different than writing our opinion or writing something that we're thinking about or telling a story. We have to prove everything. And this is actually a protection for you, quite frankly, because people will have opposing views to your view. So when you can point to research, and especially if you have investigated both sides, this says who question really says it's not my opinion, it is what this researcher who proved it through these methods says. We're going to talk more about that. Now, I'm not going to spend much time on this, which is the works cited, the bibliography, the reference page, whatever you may call it. This tends to stress us out, though, but a great tool for this is Citation Machine, which I'm going to show you in a moment. For Phi Theta Kappa, they tend to prefer APA format. So make really sure that you have selected that format. And then I happen to have the cite a book here. And for honors and action, citing books will be very important. For something like the honors case study, you're going to need to cite newspapers. But don't stress, we're going to talk about that in a moment. I want to spend some time talking about inline citations. And I have some resources for you that we're going to explore. One of them is PSU, and you can see this link, and you can Google and come up with this as well. Maybe Google inline citations, maybe PSU inline citations. Another excellent resource here is Purdue, and specifically their online writing lab, which is commonly referred to as OWL. So owl.purdue, as you can see there, and that's a wonderful research, and you can Google that. Oh, and then Microsoft Word, and we'll talk about that. But I want to switch over now, and let me come here to competitive edge. I want to go back. I was doing this demonstration previously. When you log in as a Phi Theta Kappa member, you got to log in, but you got to be a member. Log in to getanedge.ptk.org. Don't worry about this Moodle thing. It'll add that on. Just type getanedge.ptk.org, and you'll see that you have 2 courses. And I really encourage you really to do both of these. But I'm going to look at competitive edge because I want to clarify one of the papers that you might be writing. Go through competitive edge because it's wonderful. And as you complete level 1, level 2 will be revealed to you. Complete level 2, then you'll see level 3, and you'll go through this until you get to level 5. This is the last level. And one of the action items, the required items to complete level 5, is that you will do what's called a case study. Now, if I click on this link, you'll see this button, you'll have to submit. You will go through this, but it will ultimately have you submitting a paper into the honors case study. So these 2 things are connected: honors case study and competitive edge. In fact, the honors case study is a requirement of level 5, okay? So go through, read all this. Woo, look at this, notice to win. You might have a chance to win there. The rewards are outlined, the rules, and you definitely want to follow these rules about, what you're going to need to read, read some newspapers. Wonderful online resources at our library. Notice as you're planning your time that for this contest that you'll need to submit by 5 p.m. on November 11th. Always get this information from the website, especially as you're watching this video. Time may have gone by, and so you want to get the most recent information. There are word limits. These are strictly enforced. Make sure you're abiding by those. And down at the bottom, now this is where we get a little stressed out. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because Phi Theta Kappa has tried to make this easy on us. They say, listen, we're asking you to cite newspapers, and so we're going to tell you how to do it. You put the author's last name, you put their first initial, you put their middle initial, you put a parenthesis, you put the year that it was published, the month, and then the date. You put the title of the article, end that with a period. You put the newspaper title, right? So New York Times, Commercial Appeal, whatever it happens to be. PP, and then the pages, right? And then retrieved from whatever URL. And they give you some wonderful examples here of how to do that. All right. Now, on top of that, they provided a link to Citation Machine. I've already got that open right here. And when you come in, make sure you do 2 things. Make sure you click. We're using APA, so make sure you click on APA. When you do, you might notice it takes you by default to book. Just make sure you click on the tab that is relevant to what you are citing. Okay, so you can see that. So, for example, you probably are citing newspapers if you're working on the honors case study. If you are working on the honors in action, you might be citing a book. Okay, so great tool to use. I encourage you to use that. But what I want to talk to you about is inline citations. And notice that this is my PSU site, great site. And I want to read together up here at the top. Using in-text citations. Include an in-text citation when you refer to, summarize, or paraphrase, or quote from another source. Now, I think all of us know when we quote, we need to give credit. Perhaps we understand that when we paraphrase, we need to give credit. Although I'm not sure everybody understands that, but make sure that when you paraphrase, you are giving credit. But this says, even if I am summarizing a thought. Well, the whole point of research, when you really think about it, is you're researching so that you can summarize it all and write about it. So your inline citations are going to be many. And let's not forget, we have to constantly answer the question, says who? I might say to you, the sky is blue. And you would say, no, it's not. It's raining today. The sky is gray. Very overcast. I don't see any blue. Who says the sky is blue? What do you mean by blue, right? Who proved that it is blue? Can you tell me? Whose work are you summarizing? And we might say, I didn't do the research. I didn't do the survey. This is just like I'm looking at it. Oh, well, you cannot see certain things. You don't understand the refraction. We can't see bacteria and germs without microscopes. And so who says this? Who has proven it? Did you conduct a survey? Did you do some scientific research? Who says who? All right. Very briefly, they are saying what an inline APA citation looks like, and generally it's going to be in parentheses. It's going to be before the end of the sentence. You see the little period at the end of the sentence there. And inside the parentheses, we put the author's last name, comma, and the year of publication. Typically, that's it. Now, if we have a direct quote, you can see they add a page number. All right? But let's look at an example because I think that makes it a lot more clear. And in fact, I'm going to skip down to a really simple example. This is a sentence from the paper that I am writing. This is in my bibliography. For every reference list, every works cited entry, there must be a direct connection in my writing. Now, here's why. I might read, if I'm writing a big research paper, I might read 300 different sources. No joke, 150 sources. Does not mean I will use all of them. And I might have learned something that influenced a thought, but am I summarizing it? Am I paraphrasing it? How is it used in the work? If I have referenced it in my reference list, then where specifically did I use it? Imagine this sentence. Role play can help children learn techniques for coping with bullying. Now, first I want you to imagine this sentence without any reference. If I, as a scholarly person, was reading your work and you made this sentence, role play can help children learn techniques for coping with bullying, I would say to you, says who? And you would say, well, I said it. I said it just now. That's who said it. I said it. Well, I'm sorry. Well, if you said it, did you prove it? Have you done scientific experiments? Have you, had cameras on playgrounds? Did you have a control set of children where there was no role playing and then you had another? Well, you can't make the statement unless you have that proof. You say, well, please, now I cannot be asked to go do. No, you can't. It would be overwhelming. We always stand on the shoulders of others. And so as we stand on the shoulders of others, this person, I'm going to assume, did that research. Now, I say assume, I can go to the reference list or the works cited bibliography part, and I can find out more. And I can go and say, how did they prove that? What exactly did they do? I want to learn more about this, right? So I put that work cited in line. I cite that in line so that it supports what I just said. It answers the question, says who. Let's look at another example. I'll go up to this one as a little bit more complex, but let's do this. Here's a paragraph that is from the body of a paper. A few researchers in the linguistics field have developed training programs designed to improve native speakers' ability to understand accented speech. Says who? Well, in this case, these three authors right here, in the year 2002 said it. And if I want to find out more, I go to the references page and I look in my works cited list or my bibliography and I find out what they did. Okay, so there was some study or something, it was published in this journal. That's a pretty solid source, it sounds like to me. And what gives this particular strength is that these were not the only researchers who said it. There was another researcher who also proved this. Okay, so I can go and look that person up and look at the strength of that reference because there were two different articles, two different researchers that both say this. Okay, a few researchers in the linguistics field have developed training programs designed to improve native speakers' ability to understand accented speech. And here are the researchers who said that. Their training techniques are based on the research described above, indicating that comprehension improves with exposure to non-native speech. Now, I'm going to talk about a particular researcher's work, and these three researchers' work. I can use et al, and this is actually part of the sentence, this name, so the only thing I need to put in parentheses is the publication year. The purpose of the publication year is it gives me an understanding of how current or how old the thought is, right? This might have been disproven 20 years ago if I'm citing something that's 30 years old, right? It might be irrelevant because there's different technologies, because culture has changed, whatever. So that's why that publication date is important. Okay, hopefully this is kind of starting to make sense to you. Here's an example, beautiful example on this page of what to do when there is no author, just the title of the article. So lots of exceptions, but the key point here is for every entry in my bibliography, my works cited page, I must connect that to where I used it. If I can't make that connection, it should not be in my works cited or my bibliography because I didn't use it. I didn't summarize it. I didn't paraphrase it. I didn't quote it. Hopefully that's starting to make sense there. And let me tell you, it's a deep thought. So if you're saying, I didn't know that, that's all right. You know, we all learn these things, and now you're a stronger researcher because you are learning this. Now, lots of different things. Let's see, this is just more inline citations that you can read from OWL. And remember, that's the Purdue site. So you can read more about that. And they have a cite your source automatically. That might be a cool tool to investigate. Some things that I love here is there's a YouTube channel for the Purdue OWL. Isn't that awesome? I love that. So you might want to look at some of those videos. And then, let's see, I think this is just more kind of the same. This was the main page, owl.purdue. So you can spend some more time looking at that. So I hope that is helpful to you. Now, very, very quickly, because I know this video is running long, this is just an example of a research paper, and you can see it's just a made-up practice activity. And what I want to do is show you down here at the end. Okay, so here's the bibliography. And notice when I put my mouse over there, it changes shapes. That's because Word on this References tab has the ability to generate your bibliography and even change it up into different styles. Look at that. If I instead want it to be works cited, I can go down there and it updates this and it puts all these in here. Because if you have a lot of these, it can be hard to keep up with who you've used and who you haven't. In terms of the correct citing, look at that. As I move my mouse over that, you see how Word recognizes this as a field? And it's because I did an insert citation here. And basically what you're doing is you're putting your sources. You can add a new source and you can select what type of source it is, and you can fill in the information that you want, you know, how that's supposed to be. And Word will generate these citations and things to put in so that you don't have to worry about it. I'm just going to make something up very quickly because this is running long. If I wanted to give credit to somebody, remember it goes inside the period. So I'm going to, before the end of the sentence. So insert, and maybe this came, I'm going to say from Reuben Hamlin. And it dropped it in there exactly as it should be. And if Hamlin, we didn't look, but if Hamlin was not already listed here, it would make sure that Hamlin was listed there. It would update my bibliography. In fact, sometimes you have to tell it to update. But anyway, so you might want to explore a word for that. That's kind of a cool tool. Oh goodness, I'm messing this paper up a lot. That's okay. I'm going to close this out because the important thing here is that when you're creating that bibliography and your reference entry, make sure that you are also citing it within the body of the text. I hope that helps. I hope you learned something from this because we're all learning every day, and that's part of the purpose of Phi Theta Kappa and these scholarly activities. And I appreciate you taking this on and all the work that you're doing, and thank you so much.